what am I carrying in my backpack as I go up these mountains? Because if I'm carrying a lot of baggage with me that has no purpose or function in getting me to my summit, why on earth am I utilizing all this energy to carry it up with me? I start to identify things, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, whatever. I would remove that clutter from my backpack and ensure that the tools and items that I'm carrying are super functional and or bring a lot of joy, which is why I carry it with me.
This is the Home of Healthspan podcast, where we profile health and wellness role models, sharing their stories and the tools, practices, and routines they use to live a lively life.
Saahil, it is wonderful to have you on the show. You're one of those people that we've had online relationship for a long time, going back and forth, communicating. And even though this is not in person, can't wait to get to Dubai or go to Kashmir and summit some mountains with you. It is amazing to be with you live today. So thank you for joining us.
Awesome to be here, Andrew.
Now, before we jump in, and you certainly do a lot and provide a lot to the world, how would you define yourself?
I'm a lively entrepreneur, coach, author, and mountaineer.
Amazing. And I'm excited for this show. So a lot of the guests that we have on could be professional athletes, professional physical coaches, specific to health. And what I like about you, because our whole point is Healthspan role models, people finding people that resonate with them and saying, hey, I want to live that healthy life. And as we're starting the recording, we're talking about the whole point of health is to enable your life, right? Like a lot of our listeners, that's not your full-time job, but you're so much better at everything else you do because of how you invest in your health. So can you talk about how you said you referenced 3 years, what may have been a wake-up call or change for you that said, hey, this is something I need to prioritize differently than maybe I have in the past?
Well, if I go back a little bit in time, I had a near fatal car accident, Andrew. And at the time, I did what every entrepreneur would do, is just ignore it and not drive at night anymore. But many years later, I was feeling unwell. It's not bad enough that I need to go see a doctor or a specialist, but I know something's wrong. I can feel it. And I was in a safe space with some folks in Jordan having breakfast at a friend's wedding. And I said, guys, I feel my energy levels dipping a lot, to the point where I feel I'm about to fall asleep during the random times of the day. I'd feel bloated. I'd felt, I'd wake up with a heavy head. My nose would be blocked. And they said, Saahil, you might actually have some vitamin deficiencies and or intolerances. So why don't you go see this specialist? I was like, oh, I've never heard of this before. So I went, and lo and behold, I was intolerant to stuff that I was eating every single day, right?
Yeah.
And, a funny story, because I've been vegetarian all my life, and I used to make fun of vegans, saying, thank God I'm not vegan, because if I was, I'd shoot myself. And two things that I was highly intolerant to were eggs and dairy. I had to leave them. And so essentially, I had to go vegan for a year. Apart from that, I found out and this is something very important. You see these reports and you're within the range for the vitamin. But what I found out later through this specialist is, Saahil, you don't want to be in the range. You want to be in some of these in the top 50%, right? Because that's when you perform at a more optimal level. And so even though I thought, oh, I'm good, I'm within the range, I was not good. So a combination of my body fighting because I was eating foods that were harming me and low vitamin levels in certain key vitamins and minerals, that combination led to being lethargic, sleeping issues, nose being blocked, and like I said, just constant inflammation in the body. And I didn't realize how much that was affecting me, Andrew, until I took care of it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this because I'm going to make me a priority. I keep prioritizing other people and other things like work and this and that. How about me?
Yeah.
Let me make myself my first priority. And that's kind of when the journey began. And I realized, oh my God, I can feel so much better. I can feel so much more alive. I can be so much more productive. It was mind blowing to me.
That's I think the thing a lot of people miss if they think health is absence of some serious disease. So I don't have diabetes. I don't have cancer. I'm healthy. And they don't necessarily recognize when they wake up every day what that difference can be. I had an office mate seemed very in shape, athletic guy. And we worked together in McKinsey for years. And I met him after and he said, I actually every single day woke up basically hungover. And he had a gluten intolerance. And he said, I am so much smarter now. When I was working with you, I wasn't very good, but I am so much better at everything now when I took that out. And not everybody has a gluten intolerance or dairy or eggs, but we think because it's every day, oh, this is normal. But maybe normal's not what we should aspire to. Maybe there's something better out there. And so it's amazing you had those friends that turned you on and said, wow, there's a different way to wake up. There's a different way to feel through the day.
Absolutely. And the beauty is, Andrew, when I started on this journey, now I keep asking myself, what can I do better? Because I'm loving this. I'm buying back time or freeing up time, however you want to call it. I'm getting more done in less time. I get time for my hobbies. I get more time for family. It's interesting because the last 3 years, which have been quite turbulent in the world, have been the 3 best years we've had in our company. And it's with the least amount of hours that I've actually spent in the company.
Yeah, there's a funny stat for the NC2A, which is the Collegiate Athletic Association in the US, that athletes have better grades during season than out of season. So when they have way less time to study, they're more efficient. And so I think it's a similar thing. With less time, we could be so efficient and we could fill up the time with anything, but are we doing the things that move the needle and are we doing them well? And when you're mentally clear, you're present, you have a totally different effectiveness in those times. So today you mentioned you were vegetarian, you had that intolerance to eggs and dairy. And so for a year didn't have those. What does your nutrition profile look like now? I mean, how do you feed yourself kind of day to day, week to week?
Yeah, so it eventually became part of my belief system. So I've now decided to live on a plant-based diet for life. And I just feel really good. And like I said, it's part of my belief system. So what I do is I've consulted with a nutritionist because I have to ensure I'm getting the right balance between the good fats, some carbs, and protein, because I'm also building muscle. As I climb mountains and I realize more and more that for longevity, lean muscle mass is key. Well, it's not the only thing, but it certainly makes life a lot better in the future years. And I know that the older I get, the harder it is to build that lean muscle mass. So I've started on that journey now. And so I'm very conscious about what I eat. One thing I've learned is you can modify existing meals and just add something to it.
Yeah.
It's not about getting a big chunk of, for example, everyone talks about protein. I don't have to get a huge amount of protein every meal, but I can keep adding in the meals that I have a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. It all adds up to a lot. So, I'm more conscious about what I eat. I'm more conscious the order in which I eat my food because I've been tracking blood sugar as well. And I know that, if I eat the fiber first, then the protein, then the carbs, that has the best result on my blood sugar. When I just change the order and have carbs first, for example, then the protein, then the fiber, it's spiking a lot more. So just by using all this technology that's readily available for us, like wearing the glucose monitor, I've learned so much. After every meal, I go for a 10 or 15-minute walk because that helps to prevent spikes or to help bring the blood sugar down. Now, again, simple hacks. It's not that difficult. Anyway, after a meal, I don't want to rush back into work or rush into anything. So I'm like, let me just walk around. And if it's bad weather outside, I'll walk inside the house or in the office. But, just go up and down the hallway for 10 minutes and then that gives me a little bit of a break before I get back into work. But all these things mean that I'm not going to get, as you know, with the glucose going higher, I might get tired. And that, again, impacts my efficiency at work. So taking 10 minutes off is probably going to give me half an hour more in buying back time because I'll be doing things more efficiently.
I want to actually double click there. The walk after work, certainly there's the physical movement part. And I think we'll come back to fitness and physical movement and your mountaineering and yoga and everything else. But I'm curious on the stress management benefits there? Because one of the things you said is, hey, after having this meal, having this break, I don't want to rush back into work. And so what are your daily or weekly practices to maintain that mental presence and clarity and manage stress? Because you're running an international business, you're doing speaking, you have a lot going on, but you don't seem highly stressed, right? You seem at peace with it, enjoying it. And so what are the things that you put in place to maintain that equanimity?
I love that question. Well, let's start with the beginning. When I wake up, I don't pick this up. I don't pick up my mobile phone. Okay? Because sometimes I used to read things that just, let's just say, took me to a bad place. Yeah. And I said, I want to control my morning. I want to decide and energize myself every single morning. So I focus on movement, breath work, meditation. I'll do my workouts. I'll sit for breakfast with the kids before they go to school. So, things that are just bringing a lot of joy and smiles in the morning. So by the time I've energized myself, even if some bad news comes, I feel a lot more prepared because my battery is full versus being quite empty when I wake up. Then during the day, what I make sure is I have lots of herbal tea. I don't take too much caffeine because that's going to affect my sleep. So I take herbal tea. And every hour, hour and a half at work or something, I'll just step up and make myself a herbal tea. And what that does for me is it's not a cup of tea. It's a cup of time. So that gives me about like a 5 or 10 minute break where I can just enjoy and sip on this drink. I usually have it by the window, so I'm staring outside and just appreciating the view. So that just takes my mind off everything and gives me a bit of a break. It's like, having a break between sets in the gym. You can't keep at it nonstop. It's just going to tire you out. During lunch, I make sure that it's at least half an hour to 45 minutes, including the walk. I don't want to rush. I don't want to talk about work. I don't want to watch any screens. I just want to enjoy the food, be present, appreciate what I'm eating. Because I realized when I chew my food better and it goes down more as a liquid, I'm making it so much easier for my stomach to digest it and to process it, right? Versus gulping it down as fast as I can so I can get back to my computer and send out the next email. So I'm just a lot more present. I think being present helps me relax a lot more.
Yeah, these are good lessons for me. I could be much better with lunch. In the morning, I'm good, but that throughout the day, maintaining that mindfulness, that presence.
And just to finish it off, because I want to share in the evening, I make sure that, and this impacts sleep, this just allows me to be more peaceful. Again, all electronics off 1 hour before going to bed. Getting into a nice sleep routine, maybe some calming music, spending time with the family, dimming the lights, just things to start telling my body, hey, we're getting ready to go to bed and rest so we can heal and recover and start again the next day and be fresh.
There seems to be something there of rituals and signals, right? Like the tea, it's not just a cup of tea, not just a cup of time, but it's this ritual, it's this process and the bedtime and the routine of getting your mind, getting your body into the environment that is most conducive to what you're trying to achieve, right? You mentioned going to the gym, and that's certainly part of it. But I think for you, if I understand, right, you talked about the walks. I've seen some pretty amazing yoga poses you do. You do the mountaineering. It's not just about going into a room and picking up heavy objects. I mean, it seems like for you, movement is more life, right? Like it's you want to maintain the lean muscle, so you're investing in strength training, but there are all these other aspects. So how do you view fitness, and how does that fit into your objectives and in your life?
It's exactly what you said, Andrew. I used to think, oh, I've gone to the gym, I've done 1 hour, I'm done for the day. But that's not the case. I mean, we're mobile species. We're meant to move.
Right.
And so in the office, for example, I have a walking pad. And when I'm in a meeting where I'm not the one presenting and my head can kind of bop from side to side, when I'm just listening, I get on that walking pad and I raise my desk and I start walking. And I end up getting a couple thousand steps in. And I call them free steps.
Yeah.
I keep a pair of sneakers in my office. So every time I'm about to get on the walking pad, get out of the whatever work shoes I might be wearing, something very comfortable. And I put on a slow speed. I'm walking maybe 1 mile an hour. So it's not that fast. I'm not breaking a sweat or anything. I'm just
Yeah.
getting those free steps in. If I get a phone call, I go on the walking pad if I know it's going to last at least 15 minutes, or I'll just walk up and down the hallway in the office. Something. It's and that's what I like. It's about breaking it down into bite size. Because when you do a little bit here, a little bit there, by the end of the day, you're like, wow, I walked a lot. Versus I need to do 10,000 steps today. Oh man, it's going to take me an hour. I don't have that time right now.
Yeah. I mean, there is the habit stacking, right? So that as you're doing a call, as you're working on something, being able to do it. And I think these walking pads, I had wanted one. My early office had a treadmill desk, and treadmill desks could be more expensive, right? The big complex. But I was on a call with a friend. It's like, oh, these walking pads. I mean, it's $100 or something on Amazon. Some of these. So as soon as I got off the call, I said, wait, that was what had been holding me back, was this little piece. It fits right under my desk. I have a standing desk anyway. And yeah, so anybody listening to this, if you're on the fence, it is a much more accessible investment than you might realize.
Not only that, you get folding ones, so they tuck away easily as well. It doesn't even take up much room.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I would love to hear, we talk about our 5 pillars. You have your 7 summits. You use a lot of mountaineering terminology. And so I'd love to hear about the 7 summits, but also the walking is part to move your body, but you have these things that you're kind of training for life and training to do some of these excursions. I've seen a lot about them. You've written a lot about them, but I'd love to hear more about those.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with the 7 summits. So the 7 summits in the world of mountaineering is the tallest mountain on each continent. That's, and I always tell people, there's this thing, if you conquer the 7 summits, it's like you've conquered the world, right? In the mountaineering world. It doesn't mean that the hardest mountains, by the way, it's just something cool, right? A feather in your cap. Now, I don't define the 7 summits for people. I let them define it for themselves, because ultimately, a lot of people don't have a definition of success. You might hear things like, yeah, I want to be rich. I want to be healthy. I want to have great relationships. But what does that mean? It's very vague.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, let's start to define what that summit looks like. Let's be clear on what it means. And by the way, it's from your perspective in life today. 10 years from now, you might see the world differently. That's okay. You give yourself permission that it can be modified along the way. But you need your North Star, you need direction. And by classifying your 7 summits, it allows you to make decisions. Because a lot of people face challenges and decisions, Andrew. Should I do this or that? Now you can just ask, well, is it taking me up any of my summits? Yes, let's do it. If it's not, no, let's say no. And if it's going up more than one summit, which one is a higher priority at this stage in my life? The one on health is more important than the one on social impact right now, for example. Okay, let's climb that one right now, and we'll put the other one on pause. But why 7? If I ask someone for 3, they would say the 3 that I mentioned: health, wealth, and relationships. But when I tell you, think about 7 things that are very important in your life, now you're like, let me dig a bit deeper. What else really matters to me? Like, one that came up for me that I wasn't expecting was fun and recreation. And I said, and that was like a light bulb went off, because now when I make a decision, for example, let's say I can increase my wealth a lot more, but it meant that for the rest of my life, fun and recreation went down. I would say no to that now, because it's not that I don't have enough money to live. I have, the needs versus desires is very different. I have more than enough for the needs, the necessities of life, right? Shelter, food, nowadays internet, clothing. But basically, I realize that I want to look at my whole self. That when I make a decision, how is it impacting all the summits that matter to me? And based on that, I will now say yes or no. So there's a lot more clarity in my life. And when there's more clarity, I get rid of a lot of the fluff that was eating up my time, which was just getting me nowhere. It's like I'm traveling without moving, right? I'm moving, but I'm not moving any forward. It's like I'm on a treadmill.
Yeah. I mean, you can be busy and productive are different things. And then productive on something that matters to you versus not? Because you can be very productive on things that have no meaning to you.
Absolutely. And then to take it one step further, I would even say, okay, what am I carrying in my backpack as I go up these mountains? Because if I'm carrying a lot of baggage with me that has no purpose or function in getting me to my summit, why on earth am I utilizing all this energy to carry it up with me? So I start to identify things, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, whatever, and I would, let's call it clutter. I would remove that clutter from my backpack and ensure that the tools and items that I'm carrying are super functional and or bring a lot of joy, which is why I carry it with me. So again, that helped me to reduce a lot of weight and allowed me to move faster to get to my summits.
I'm hesitant to even bring it up because I don't want to go off on a super tangent, but I'm really curious at some point. I'd like to talk to you on these things that we carry in our bag. And as you go through them, understanding how they got there in the first place. Like, hey, did I put this here? Right? You know, when you check into the airport, hey, have your bags been with you? Did you pack them? Because I imagine there's some things that you're carrying and you start pulling them out. You're like, well, I didn't put this here. You know, where did this believe? This came from my parents, or this came from the school I went to, or this came from my first employer, but it wasn't something I put here. I just ended up with it in my bag and I've been carrying it this whole time. Or it could be a tool, I imagine, that you put in intentionally and it serves you really well. And they give an example of, I heard someone whose father would hurt the mother, and the son learned that if he pretended he was sick and throwing up, the dad would stop and try to come take him. And so he had this tool of deception. Deception kept people safe. But that tool, when you're an adult and you're trying to build healthy relationships, that's not a tool to use anymore. So understanding, okay, this is a tool that was, and it served me at a time, but it's not serving me now. And now I need to put it to the side.
Absolutely. You raise such an important point, because sometimes, whether it's a belief system or a tool that we developed that helped us at a certain stage in our life, today it may not have any functional purpose. But we, like you said, we haven't decluttered it, so we're still carrying it with us, perhaps unintentionally, or maybe we're afraid to let it go. That could also be the case.
Yeah.
And so a very powerful exercise, Andrew, that I encourage people to do, which only takes a couple of minutes every single day. Before I go to bed, I ask myself, what took me away from peace today? Okay, and I'll just write it down. Sometimes I may not have that aha moment where I know why it happened, but I just note down what took me away from peace. And then I say, what gave me a lot of peace or joy today? Because I want to end on a high, right? And I note it down. And by noting that down every day, as I kind of do a review at the end of the week or perhaps at the end of the month, I start to see patterns that every time this happened, whatever that is, it took me away from peace. And that then allows me to identify that, hey, this is clutter in my life. These situations, every time I get into them, it's putting me in a bad space. And then I also notice the opposite, that whenever this other thing is happening in my life, it's bringing a lot of peace and joy. So I'm like, how do I do more of that? So it's all about discovering these patterns, because you may not see it in an instant, or you might, because you're being honest with yourself and like, hey, every time this happens, I lose my top or whatever it is. But sometimes we don't know. And so we need a tool to help us to identify.
I really like that. I do it on an annual basis, but I think you lose the micro over time. So whether it's daily or weekly, I mean, the daily, it'd be fresh. You brought up a couple times, when we talked about your mindset and how you, from the morning to through the day, through the night, preparing for bed, this of, hey, before I go to bed, I capture this and document it. You mentioned the prioritization of sleep and resting and recovering your body. What are your routines around it? I mean, are you an 8 hours a night guy? Like, how do you view sleep as part of your life?
I'm not a big fan of number of hours. I just want to say that up front. And I also want to say that there are people, based on the knowledge that I've gained by reading literature, by listening to podcasts, it's not just the quantity of sleep, it's also the quality of sleep. Like, am I getting enough deep sleep? Am I getting enough REM sleep? Because if a lot of that time is light sleep, that's not really giving me the recovery and the healing that my body needs to be able to function more effectively the next day. What I also realized, it's also the time that you sleep. From what I understand from the circadian rhythms, is that even if I slept at 3 in the morning, for example, and then woke up at 11 and I got 8 hours, from what I understood, from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m., it's more physical recovery. And then from 2 to 6, it's more mental recovery. So if I go to bed very late, I'm missing out on the physical recovery. So I could wake up, mind is fresh, but the body is tired. Now, is that going to help me function as a father, as a boss, as a friend, as all the different labels I play? Probably not. So I started becoming more conscious of the time I go to bed, and I stopped using an alarm. I haven't used an alarm for, I think, 4 years now. I only keep it as a backup if I have to catch a flight or something. But other than that, I just stopped using an alarm. So when the body is ready to wake up, it wakes up. And that way, I'm not waking up with an alarm when I'm in the middle of some cycle where, had it been an extra 5 minutes, it'd be the difference between fresh and groggy.
Yeah.
And I found that this really works for me, because you get into a rhythm. Once you sleep at a similar time, and you just end up waking up at a similar time. And in my case, I sleep around 7 hours. That's what I found. Okay, it's somewhere around there.
And are you pretty consistent in the bedtime and the wake time? Because that's I understand is, they call it social jet lag, where a lot of people have a kind of sleep schedule during the week and maybe different on the weekend. And it's that consistent bed and wake time that it can be really important.
So usually I go to bed between 10 and 10:30. That's the goal. And I would say 85% of the time that works. Of course, sometimes there's a birthday, there's a special event, maybe there's an emergency, who knows? Yeah, we're not robots at the end of the day, right? And I wake up, again, around 5:30-ish, plus minus.
And you just talked about, we're not robots. There's a reason we're investing in our health and we're doing all this. And you just wrote some about the tying your team to the rope, right? Your rope and tethering together. And it seemed, and you talked about your family and as a friend, as a boss, all these people in your life, that it's not this solo endeavor, my health, my. It's why are we doing it and how we engage with our tribe, with our community, with the group that we're doing. How has that informed how you design each of these elements of your life, or what you do with each day, understanding the importance of community and social connection to yourself?
Well, first, I just want to say I prioritize me, right? I'm my first priority. And I say that not from a selfish point, but if I'm the best version of myself, I can be the best father, the best husband, the best son, the best friend, the best boss, etc. In terms of energy levels, in terms of productivity, in terms of kindness, because I found when I'm not in a good space, I would unleash a lot more, right? There'd be more anger, etc. So I'm just a lot more calm, a lot more peaceful. So I do it with the intention to be a better role model for the people around me. And what I find is one of the mistakes I made was when I started getting all these benefits, I would tell my wife, hey, do this, do that. And I realized telling anyone what to do is bad, real bad. No one likes being told what to do. But what I do now is I just share the benefits that I'm getting as a result of the actions that I'm taking. And what I've noticed slowly but surely, the people close to me, like the people who work for me, they're now starting to make better decisions around health. Mm-hmm. The people at home are starting to make better decisions around health, about well-being. And it's not just the people, but it's also the environment we create. So in the office, we make sure there's good sunlight. We make sure we have a lot of plants around. It's a very warm atmosphere. In the house, it's the same thing. How do we focus on creating that environment? So as a result of all of this, I find that relationships have blossomed. And ultimately, we're a social species. I can't do everything on my own, nor do I want to do everything on my own. I want to have friends. I want to have family that I can be with, laugh with them, cry with them, share stories with them. These are all the fun moments in life. And I remember my mentor, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, saying, don't make your work God, right? I mean, yes, it's important. And I never say that it's not. But if that's my only focus, I'm going to start sacrificing all these other things, including health and relationships and social impact and community. But those things matter as well. And that's what the 7 summits highlighted to me, that I have to ensure I'm giving time to all the 7 mountains that I want to climb in my life. Otherwise, it's not providing me with fulfillment. And without fulfillment, I'm going to have regret. And that's the last. I don't want to wake up one day and go, I should have, would have, could have. That's not me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really beautiful place to close. It's not about optimizing any single thing. It's about looking at a life and your life holistically and how it can and should come together. And I think you've done a beautiful job thus far in what you share and how you coach people to be able to bring the same to their lives is a true gift. And I don't say that lightly. And I appreciate not just the work you do, but also the time you took today to join us and share your story with us, Saahil. So thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. I feel that we all have a story to share. And if the story we share can improve the lives of other people, even if it's one person, we should share it. So thank you for providing this platform where great speakers, great individuals come on to share their stories and benefit the audience that are listening.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Home of Healthspan podcast. And remember, you can always find the products, practices, and routines mentioned by today's guests, as well as many other Healthspan role models on alively.com. Enjoy a lively day.